Sometimes let the women I'm close to watch me if I'm like in a relationship with them.
You see, many of you see me. Hell, I guess all of you see me that way now. And that is the truth. I am one, or used to be one.
I deleted them from my profile because I did not want to be seen as some creep. You know, I hate being seen as a creep.
In 2023, the Nampa Police Department executed a search warrant at the residence of Jupiter the Hybrid, a TikToker who seemed to find a fulfilling life in speaking with on his livestream. Before the police's investigation, the details of Jupiter the Hybrid were well known in the online community. Jupiter fashioned himself as some sort of human vampire werewolf, hence the name Jupiter the Hybrid. And because of his hybrid nature, Jupiter feels he could get away with most things he did. But beyond the details of his name, what grosses everyone out is the fact that Jupiter is a predator. His TikTok has over 45,000 followers. His YouTube channel, Jupiter Paranormal, was created on December 14th, 2017, and has under 600 subscribers. And instead of taking responsibility for his actions and seeking help, he often blames them on his addiction to nicotine and his mental health disability. But that is not the whole of his story. He can be said to have inherited his predator instincts from his family.
You mentioned that you were, a was that by your older brother, Junior?
Yes, that was by Junior.
And that's the one that's in jail right now for...
Yes.
There's no doubt that Jupiter is a deeply troubled human being. So, when did it all start? How did he attract minors? We will look at everything about the life of the TikToker, who is commonly regarded as one of the most disturbing predators in the online community. In this video, we will talk about Jupiter's mental health disability, his family history, and how that all culminated in who he would later become, a predator. Much of what is known about Jupiter came from his sister's interview with YouTuber Linda Binda. Before we fully jump into Jupiter's persona in the online community, it is important to look at his background, because much of who he became was shaped long before he ever opened a TikTok account or told anyone he was a hybrid. Jupiter's real name is Corbin Panel, and by his own admission on his YouTube channel, Jupiter Paranormal, he deleted his original TikTok account himself, though he claimed it was because he forgot the password, a story that was hard to believe given the context of everything happening around that time. He began claiming he was a supernatural hybrid at a young age, using that identity as both a personal mythology and later as a kind of armor, a way of framing himself as something beyond human accountability.
I'm a hybrid between vampire and werewolf. I'm a hybrid. My dad's a vampire, my blood dad's a vampire, my blood mom's a werewolf. Meaning I wound up with both their powers, so.
To an extent, this can be traced back to his family. According to his sister Kia, their family was marked by severe dysfunction, neglect, and a cycle of abuse that had been running long before either of them was born.
Where you noticed changes in his behavior?
I mean, we had like a fairly okay childhood. I mean, yes, him and I have some trauma. We have very similar trauma. I have a little bit more than he does. Our brother, Junior.
By the time Kia was about 10 or 11, she said the favoritism had become unmistakable, and while her father tried to treat all the children fairly, his voice in the household was consistently drowned out by a mother who had already decided that Corbin was her priority above all else.
I guess I was like 10, maybe 11 years old, where my mom did favor him a lot more, and I was noticing it. I also noticed my dad didn't favor him, and it would make my mom angry. But for the most part, my siblings, they tried to treat us all fairly. I quarreled with them, as siblings do.
What made the family background particularly disturbing was a revelation from Kia's biological father, who told her directly that many of the men in their biological family were, by his own words, predators.
I mean, I've been talking with my biological father, and he does say that a lot of the men, specifically the men in my family, my biological family, are predators.
It was therefore not surprising that Jupiter's two brothers are both registered offenders and have both served time in jail. Shane Parnell, or Junior as he was known in the family, served time for inappropriate relationships with a child. Also, Duke Panel, the older brother, was arrested at 32 after a 14-year-old girl he employed as a babysitter reported that he had been in an inappropriate relationship with her, and he was caught after investigators had the girl call him on the phone to tell him she was pregnant. A media outlet reported the story at the time. When Duke received this call, he offered to help take care of the baby. About a week earlier, after the girl reported the relationship to her parents, detectives had her make a recorded phone call in which she told him she was pregnant and he was the only possible father. At that time, the document states, he told her to help her either take care of the child or get an abortion. As expected, Jupiter's own description of his brother's crimes during a live interview was even more telling.
Only 2 brothers have been in prison. One currently still, one out and living a good life.
And one's gonna go in. What was the other one in there for, Jupiter?
Exactly what I told you about. He got framed for circulating.
Well, but you said there were 2 brothers in jail. Was the other one in there for the same stuff?
Let's just say he won. Okay?
He won?
He won. I'm not going to say the full word.
Even more disturbing was Kia's account of what Junior had done to both her and Corbin during their childhood, describing a pattern of that began when she was approximately 3 years old and continued until they were 9 and 10. Kia described a specific summer afternoon when Junior led Corbin into a treehouse under the pretense that their swimsuits needed to dry, and when Junior later came to get her, she ran away, knowing immediately that something wrong had happened inside that treehouse.
So it was summertime. We were in our swimmers. Shane told us, so us being me and Corbin, our swimming suits were dirty and we needed to take them off. I'm like, okay, like my brain is like, okay, let's go inside and do that and come back out with a clean suit on. He's like, no, it's okay, just take them off and leave them here on the trampoline and the sprinklers will wash them off. And so we did, being kids. Junior took Corbin up into, we had like this treehouse play center. He took him up there. I don't know what they were doing, but I know after a while, Junior came back down and tried to get me to go up in there with them. And I said no and ran away.
The abuse was discovered at least once by their mother, who came home and found Junior in an act of abuse against Corbin. But instead of taking it as a serious discovery, it was considered normal.
But what had happened was my mom had just gotten home. She was heading back down the hallway to the bathroom, and she happened to look over at the boys' door, and on the door was a sign that said, "Don't come in, we are playing."
Jupiter's family was packed with all sorts of acts that appropriately defined a textbook traumatic childhood. There is no doubt that the cycle of abuse did not begin with Jupiter. It was handed down to him through generations, and then permitted to continue by the people who were supposed to protect him, setting the stage for the person he would eventually become. To be clear, none of these excuses is what Jupiter became. After all, his sister Kia, who experienced the exact same dysfunction, the exact same abuse, and the exact same neglect, went on to seek therapy, pursue a psychology degree, and use her story to help others.
I am so happy, so glad that I'm looking at you right now, and your purpose in life is to help others. And I think that you're going to do this by sharing your story. And I'm just so proud, so happy. And I know that you're going to do great things in this world.
I'm going to try next year to get a degree in psychology.
Oh, wow.
And work with teens and young kids and maybe young adults who are going through similar trauma.
After his childhood experience, he no doubt became mentally unstable and began claiming he was a hybrid at a young age, just to fuel his delusions.
I'm a hybrid between vampire and werewolf. I'm a hybrid. My dad's a vampire, my blood dad's a vampire, my blood mom's a werewolf. Meaning I wound up with both their powers, so when I first got on with you, my skin started to itch.
However, Jupiter had every opportunity to break the cycle, and he chose not to. Far from what anyone might think, Jupiter was not performing, he was not trolling, and he was completely sincere. This first point of contact with his mental delusions is when he explained that he was a hybrid between a vampire and a werewolf, that his biological father is a vampire and his biological mother is a werewolf, and that he was born with the powers of both, all delivered with the same casual certainty most people use to describe their blood type. He described his eyes changing color depending on his mood, his tail wagging like a golden retriever's when he was happy and going rigid when he was angry, and his skin itching in the presence of other supernatural beings, a sensation he claimed to have experienced the moment Linda first joined their call.
When my eyes glow a subtle blue, that's usually when my eyes are that's when I'm feeling kind of out of it and down. My eyes will glow a whitish red color if I'm pissed off. And when I'm just feeling happy, my eyes stay the color they are when I'm feeling happy. or when I'm just having a good time.
He once said that his childhood training, coupled with who he is, mandated him to always want to defend those who can't defend themselves.
I'm doing what I can for those who can't, you know? I will defend those who can't defend themselves. I will be there to help others. That is what I was trained to do growing up. I want to live a peaceful existence. I want to live and make people, you know, smile and laugh at the content I post online.
Is it not weird that this is coming from someone who sees no problem in dating 15-year-old girls? He called himself a vampire werewolf lord, describing this as a kind of anti-hero archetype. He also revealed that the reason he could walk in the sunlight, unlike many other vampires, was that he was a daywalker. He said this so that he could get Linda would not have any concerns about visiting him during daytime hours. When talking about his powers, he claimed to have performed a successful exorcism in his family home using a passage from the Book of Mormon, banishing a male spirit to the underworld, something he described as a gift.
We had this angry male spirit, one that was really stupid and kept causing go down in the house, so I flipped open my Book of Mormon and read a certain passage in D&C, Doctrine and Covenants, and basically banished him from our house, sent him to the underworld where he could be judged.
Oh my gosh, you're so talented.
What was strange about all of this was that he didn't consider it weird. He told Linda that he considered them a perfectly normal topic of conversation on a first call with a stranger. He also once said he married his doll, Shiratura, whom he called a homunculus, which he brought to life. He claimed to have brought the doll to life through a blood ritual. He would then speak about her as a living partner, describing in detail how she had a shy personality and did not like being on camera. The most incredible part was when he talked about how he got the doll pregnant. Jupiter said he would explain, but that it would kind of disgust the listener. Such was how far gone he was in his delusions. But for some reason, he drew the line at someone drinking his sweat. He also once claimed he had gotten Linda Binda pregnant telepathically during their video call, explaining that what she was feeling in her stomach was his mana energy transferring to her, and that she would eventually develop fangs as proof that his powers had taken hold. The entire claim becomes even more absurd once you realize that Linda isn't a real person at all, but a character being impersonated by a man online, making the story not just impossible, but completely disconnected from reality. Later, Jupiter would rebrand himself as Shadow Raven, claiming that the old Jupiter had died and been replaced by this new identity, a move he presented as genuine self-improvement, but which amounted to nothing more than changing his name, so he could start fresh without addressing anything he had actually done.
I chose to let go of my past. Finally free, I'm finally able to get rid of my past. I'm finally able to move forward and live my life. The new Shadow Raven, the new and improved Shadow Raven is trying to change his life, trying to show that he can do whatever he wants, and just trying to help others understand that he's not going to do anything to anyone. He's changed.
What made the Delusions dangerous was not the mythology itself, but the way Jupiter used it as a framework for his high sense of entitlement. He usually talked about it to show that he operated by a different set of rules, and that consequences applied only to ordinary humans, not to a vampire werewolf lord. That's why he could talk about his egregious acts with levity, as though they were normal. YouTuber Linda Binda did an extensive documentary-like interview with Jupiter to understand his modus operandi and the extent of his predatory behavior and the series revealed how Jupiter often planned meetups with girls. Even while actively flirting with Linda, he also talked about pitting her against a minor, Abby, and whoever could get to his room faster would get engaged to him.
She had feelings for me when she met my family and all my friends. She started developing feelings for me. She's one of the girlfriends who actually stuck by me after every one of my exes that I tried to get back with turned on me. She was the only one who stuck by me.
So, are you engaged to me or to her?
I don't know, okay? My brain is going one way while my heart's going the other, okay? It depends.
Well, is your heart going in my direction?
What I'm saying is it depends on who's faster to come see me. It depends on who's the faster one.
From the very first episode, Jupiter wasted no time signaling his intentions, asking Linda almost immediately to connect with him on Facebook so he could receive whatever she was comfortable sending, a deliberately vague invitation that he had clearly extended to many others before her. He told her he sometimes allowed women he was close to watch him shower over video call. What makes this absolutely insane is that he would frame this as though he was dishing out a romantic, intimate gesture. However, this was not spontaneous. It is a carefully planned and well-rehearsed sequence, such that when he offers such gestures early enough into his conversations with minors, they see it as a compliment. But in the real sense, it was actually a technique. Again, Jupiter simply treats his incredibly dangerous acts like getting candy from the next door candy shop. That was the attitude when he informed Linda. During the very first episode, that former girlfriend had pressed rape charges against him after a encounter.
This one chick who I dated back in high school, Paige Hoagland. Know what she did after I her?
What?
Pressed charges on me. After that, she went to the police and said I her due to my little sister telling her to do it.
He then moved past this big reveal as though it was simply a minor inconvenience for him at the time, rather than a serious, troubling allegation. He even addressed the claims online that he was a pedophile. His response was immediate and almost impressive in its shamelessness, saying he only dated minors for show, that it was a power move, and that people needed to stop acting like he had done something wrong.
Someone's commented and said that they think that you're a pedophile.
Off, haters. It was only for show. I wasn't actually doing it. It was only for show.
This framing crumbled almost instantly, because just one episode later, Jupiter had switched his story entirely, claiming now that he had been set up, that he was exhausted and high on nicotine, and that he had not been thinking clearly, with 3 completely different explanations offered for the same behavior across 3 consecutive conversations.
They want us to address the pedophile word again.
I was set up. That's my side. I was set up. I was really set up. I was set up. I was tired. I was high on nicotine, and I wasn't thinking straight.
So, have you stopped talking to minors on TikTok?
Yes, I have. I stopped. I quit doing that.
Things got even darker when asked what his deepest, darkest fantasy was. Jupiter replied without hesitation that he wanted to watch everyone who had wronged him get unalived by his hand.
It makes me want it's just one of my darkest fantasies of doing. I want to kill everybody who's wronged me.
One might think maybe he was referring to those who him when he was younger, but no. The people who wronged Jupiter were people who actually pointed out his wrongdoings. There was no doubt that he was so deluded that he felt people who had called him out on his pedophilic actions were inconveniences, and such people do not deserve to exist. And then later on, when he was asked to react to people who said he was having relationships with girls who were 15 or 16 years old, his response was beyond alarming. The series later moved into territory that was impossible to laugh off, because Jupiter admitted to collecting inappropriate images from minors in a locked folder on his phone, claiming he was saving them to use against their families at the right time. As it turned out, he was so self-aware that he even kept the photos locked up in folders where even the police can't find them. That probably explains why, after the police raided his home, it didn't take long for him to get back to business as usual. Jupiter did not stop at just and dating. He also did not mind engaging in non-consensual with his victims. He told Linda that she was getting the whether she liked it or not, should she ever arrive at his house.
And then what would you do when you saw me on your front porch?
I'd pull you into my arms. I'd you and say, okay, come on, we're going in my room. Then I would shut the door and lock it. All right, baby, you're getting this whether you like it or not.
He was going on, and Linda had to gently remind him what the law says about that.
You know, in some states they consider that.
Then, just like in his style, where he makes all his suggestions seem like what his victims wanted, he immediately followed up on Linda's objection by saying he was kidding. Since they were already on a legal matter, they touched on the time the police came to his house. That was when Jupiter confirmed that before the police arrived to execute their search warrant, he had stayed up for 2 full consecutive nights, deleting images from his devices, images he described as being mostly of younger girls, because he knew that what was on them would send him to prison.
I deleted them before the police showed up. I was up all night deleting the photos and whatnot. I was up all night. I had to stay up. I pulled 2 all-nighters just to clear it.
And his reason for doing that? He said he didn't want to be seen as a creep. It turned out he didn't think he was already a creep.
For my profile, because I did not want to be seen as some creep. You know, I hate being seen as a creep.
But do you still have them now? That's just what I'm wondering.
No, I got rid of that account that was using those pictures. I got rid of it. I took it down for a bit.
The fact that he chose deletion over turning himself in, over calling for help, over doing anything remotely protective of the children whose images he held, reveals exactly where Jupiter's priorities lay, and they were not with the victims. When asked how many minors he had been in contact with in a context, Jupiter paused, seemed to genuinely lose count, and then estimated 10 to 12.
Remember how many girls it was, or was it just too many you can't remember?
I just can't remember. My brain racks itself every time, and I can't remember a damn thing.
I think it was probably I would say 10 or 12. Yeah.
As if that were not egregious enough, he then placed the blame on the parents of those girls, who should be ashamed of themselves for not taking their phones away.
So it's all the girls' parents' fault that you were sending them messages, right?
It's their fault for not actually stopping their kids from ever finding my TikTok. It's their own fault for not confiscating their phone away from them, you know?
The problem was that he was not reflective of what he was doing, and the times he tried to apologize for what he had done, they were either half-assed or not genuine. He once apologized to appease people posing as anonymous who threatened to strip him of his supernatural powers, and in another he danced awkwardly for the camera as part of his apology before pivoting back to predatory behavior within the same week.
Yeah, you may see me as some bad person. All of you, might see me as someone who's bad. But this is my way of making up for what I've done. You see, many of you see me as... Hell, I guess all of you see me that way now. And that is the truth. I am one, or used to be one.
They even forced him to delete or deactivate his account.
Jupiter has deactivated his account online. He's deactivated his TikTok and whatnot. Logged out of his Facebook.
Linda Binda's series, taken as a whole, is not just a portrait of one disturbed individual, but a masterclass in what actually looks like when it's unfiltered, patient, calculated, and wrapped inside a persona that a certain type of young person would find fascinating rather than frightening. Jupiter often flirts with minors in a way that makes them seem to be doing what they actually want, rather than being made to do what he wants. Jupiter's YouTube page, Jupiter Paranormal, and by extension his other social media page, were designed to attract kids. One of the most instructive moments in the entire Linda Binda series was when Linda documented Jupiter's escalation technique in real time. His method when targeting girls followed a recognizable pattern. He would seek them out on Facebook, begin casual conversations, and then escalate by offering to let them watch him shower over video call, normalizing exposure to his body under the cover of intimacy and closeness. He then asked her repeatedly to send images of herself, and when she hesitated, he dismissed her religious objections, called her self-conscious, told her to come on just one time, and continued applying pressure. His intention was to wear her down till she gave in to her demands. However, even when he repeatedly applied pressure, he ensured not to make it look like he was making demands. He never asked directly, always framing his requests as casual suggestions using phrases like, if you want to, and I wouldn't mind, so that if challenged, he could always claim he had not pressured anyone into anything. He also used platforms strategically, moving targets from TikTok to Facebook to Snapchat to Discord, with each platform offering different levels of privacy. Snapchat was his preferred app for meeting people. This is because the disappearing message feature gave both him and his targets a false sense of security.
I just
Let's
don't know.
get into them. Let's just how do you mostly talk to people?
I'm only looking for new friends whenever I'm on social media, I only get new friends on
TikTok?
No.
Discord?
Different one. Snapchat is where I make mostly new friends, new people, I hang out with people on Snapchat a lot because I want to make new friends. I want to meet new people, experience different people's
On Discord, Jupiter was documented telling users that if they felt mature enough to make babies, they were old enough to engage with him. On one live stream, he gave out his phone number on camera to a user named Kirsten, who mentioned she was younger, and he responded, "That's okay with me." When a 13-year-old asked during a live session whether she could still send him pictures even though she was underage, he used his usual tactic of making it seem like it was all their decision, saying, "It's up to you, sweetie." Immediately, he proposed lowering the age of consent to 16 or even 15.
Can I still send you pictures of myself even if I'm underage?
It's up to you, sweetie, if you want to, because I don't mind. If you do, I don't mind. Do you plan on turning me in if I say yes?
No, I would never.
I'd lower the age of consent all the way to 16 if you guys wanted me to. Or I'd even change it to 15 if you guys wanted me to.
He also once publicly told people to back off Abby, an underage girl, who at the time he claimed to be his girlfriend. He even lied, saying she was 21 when she was actually 17. He was also documented on video approaching a girl he believed to be 14 or 15, asking her whether she had ever thought about making content together, and adding it to paid sites. When confronted about his activities with minors, he got defensive and claimed it was only one time, and people should get over it. Also, during a live session, when asked if he had asked minors for graphic pictures, he claimed not to be harming anyone by doing so. A statement that reveals not just a lack of remorse, but a genuine absence of understanding that what he was doing constituted harm at all.
May clean your name, and it may not. here's the big question. Have you a little kid? Have you a kid?
No.
Have you asked for graphic pictures, Jupiter?
Then in 2023, the Nampa Police Department executed a search warrant at the residence of Jupiter the Hybrid, confiscating all his electronic devices. Earlier today, Nampa police detectives executed a search warrant at a residence involving internet crimes against children. While the investigation is ongoing, no one has been charged yet, and we have no details of the case to release. We wanted to take this opportunity to remind parents that social media platforms can be useful, but are often breeding grounds for predators. Please, make sure you always monitor your child's. He also admitted during the same interview that throughout the police questioning, he had skirted around the issue because he was scared and uncomfortable. Not because he was innocent, but because he knew exactly what they were looking for and what they would find.
I put up my hands, knelt down on the floor, showed them I was not going to, fight them. I wasn't going to fight. I wasn't going to do anything. And one cop comes up and they're like, I know that you don't want to be cuffed right now, but we're doing it for our own safety. And I was like, it's all right. About 5 minutes in, they take me down into the living room and sit me on the couch. And they start grilling me for information, and I just skirted around the issue, trying to get them to stop, because I was uncomfortable.
But even the police raid seemed to do very little. Jupiter revealed that he was dating a 15-year-old in the UK.
Hold up. I think that there's still more. Let's just...
Who is
this is your girlfriend? She's born... So this is your girlfriend?
Yes, in the UK, she actually, in the UK, 16 is actually considered adulthood. Did you not know that?
His sister Kia, speaking with the authority of someone who had watched him for decades, provided perhaps the most terrifying assessment of his danger, about leaving Jupiter in a room with a minor. She also revealed that growing up, Jupiter was never permitted to be alone with the younger children in the family during gatherings.
Growing up, he never was allowed, for some reason, was never allowed to be around the littles by himself. I was kind of his caretaker in regards to whenever we'd have family get-togethers.
Even more disturbing was information that emerged from access to Jupiter's private messages, revealing that he had written about wanting to have children soon. However, the disturbing thing about this was not because he suddenly had paternal instincts, but because he wanted to have his own werewolf cubs and then do things to those children that a father should never do. All of this culminates in the conclusion that Jupiter's predatory behavior was not a phase. It was not a product of a bad week or of having too many cigarettes, but systematic, calculated, and continuous. But then how did Jupiter get here? What did he say was the cause of his behaviors? Jupiter was diagnosed with autism when he was young, and from the very beginning, his mother used that diagnosis as a blanket justification. Every act of aggression, every threat, and every boundary violation he committed. There was no doubt that he had a troubling childhood, and he carried this excuse into his adult life and often excused his behaviors by saying he was autistic. Because of her experience at the hands of Jupiter, his sister had to file for a restraining order against him.
Why did you get a restraining order? What led you to getting a restraining order against Corbin?
Like I said, he's always been very aggressive. He did me with, so I just showed it to a judge, and the judge is like, this is weird, we're gonna get you a restraining order.
But his mother somehow continued to indulge him. Kia described the dynamic, explaining that Jupiter would do something violent or disturbing, and their mother's immediate and unfailing response was, he's autistic. He doesn't know what he's doing, a sentence Kia grew to despise because she could see with her own eyes that he knew exactly what he was doing.
Corbin's kind of always had anger issues ever since we were really tiny. They started getting worse and worse because Mom would say things like, he's autistic, he doesn't know what he's doing, but then I'm sure that everyone can very well tell he does indeed know what he's doing.
She described sitting on the opposite side of her room, doing nothing when he would lose a video game, walk over and throw the controller directly at her head. Not a random outburst, but a directed act of aggression at a specific target, followed by a scolding from their mother and absolutely no consequences. The coddling extended far beyond anger management. Jupiter was not potty trained until he was 17, a fact that his mother enabled by continuing to clean up after him, rather than teaching him self-sufficiency, and his personal hygiene deteriorated so severely that both he and Kia were mocked by other children at school. school. A commenter on YouTube expressed his shock at this bemusing fact. He wasn't potty trained till he was 17, even after their father stepped in and forced the issue, handing Corbin adult diapers and refusing to continue accommodating the situation. The change was minimal, and according to Kia, the last time she saw him, he was still wearing them. On the occasion that Kia described as the final straw, Jupiter grabbed the seatbelt in the back seat of their family car and used it to simply because she was singing a song he did not like. Kia's father finally forced their mother to place Jupiter in a group home, not because their mother wanted to, but because the safety of her daughters could no longer be ignored. And even then, their mother's focus remained almost entirely on Corbin and whether he was comfortable. As an adult, Jupiter carried the autism excuse forward, using it as a shield whenever someone confronted him about his predatory behavior, at one point saying on camera that he was just a disabled adult who's just trying to live his life, as though that framing alone should end the conversation.
With a 12-year-old minded man, you're dealing with a disabled adult. Thinks the cops are gonna give a shit. They're not gonna give a shit about me.
When the autism excuse was not enough, Jupiter began to blame his nicotine addiction, claiming in multiple interviews that being high on nicotine was the reason he engaged with minors online. This excuse was wild for many people. One commenter on YouTube could not believe he used this as an excuse to be a predator. I was high on nicotine. Has to be the wildest excuse for this stuff I've ever heard. What made this particularly infuriating to the people watching was that Kia and Linda Binda talked about how they knew many people with autism and ADHD, and none of them dreamed about touching children. His mother was partly to blame for this, as she encouraged him to use this as an excuse, and he had been running it ever since. This excuse often irks people, as many have come out to say being autistic is never an excuse to be a terrible person. I'm autistic, and it always makes me so mad when people use their autism as an excuse. There's no excuse for Jupiter's behaviors. Jupiter is a predator. Others could not seem to understand why his mother had used his autism to excuse his behaviors. It makes me so mad that his own mother used the excuse, but he's autistic. I'm autistic. I literally have carers, and I would never in a million years ever hurt anyone. It's not an excuse. After all, being a disabled adult should never make anyone into a bad person. Just because he is a disabled adult doesn't mean he can't be held accountable. Another commenter on YouTube straight up rejected Jupiter as an autistic